Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm going to walk you through Canada employment trends for March 2016. Now, my presentation is only one perspective in the employment trends. You're more than welcome to go out to government sites like Stats Canada, banking sites like TD, Royal, CIBC to get their perspective on things, or even read the different media sites like CBC, Toronto Star, or even going further looking at some of what the industry associations are saying on the trends. Here's a little bit about myself. I'm a CPA CGA trade. I've got 25 years of experience, so I'll come at things from a discussion from all different angles, including government policies, down to basically solutions as well as what it takes for companies to compete. I'll look at employment trends across Canada, I'll look at an industry trend, and I'll give you some insight about what's going to happen going forward. So, employment's one of those things that you just can't look at it 1 month at a time. Yes, we had a pickup in March, but we had decreases previous months and stuff like that. You have to look at a trend line over the past few months. And since January, we basically have created about 11,000 net new jobs over that period of time. The economy is growing, but it's growing at a slow pace. So that's the key thing to keep driving into this, and that's one of the things I want to bring up. Now, overall employment growth so the employment rate has fell down. Actually, if you look at even further, our participation rate is around 65%. We're about 2 points ahead of the US. So overall, we have a higher participation rate, but we still have some significant issues in terms of employment. But the good thing is when you look at the overall theme, we've created 130,000 jobs since March 2015. Provincial Impact, this will give you a quick understanding. Alberta, and this is something to bear in mind, gained 19,000 jobs last month, but 14,000 of them are in the wholesale trade area. So that tells you right away that there's been a shift in the economy. The resource industry hasn't recovered because the oil hasn't bottomed out, and there's been a shift in employment. That's something to bear in mind. You'll see provinces like Manitoba and Ontario picked up jobs, but what you have to do is look at the dynamics of those provinces as what's driving that. In most cases, it's a strong retail area or it's something to do with the agricultural sector, but it's something new that's not necessarily related to manufacturing. This shows you an overall industry trend, and if you look at this, basically what I did is I looked at the 34,000 new net jobs have been created since December 2015. But if you look at the resource-based sector, most of those jobs have been created within key sectors like construction, utilities, and the service sector. So that's bear in mind. We're still seeing some struggles in manufacturing. As much as we thought there was a rebound happening, we're not seeing it necessarily in the numbers. The same with the oil sector and natural resources, we're not seeing it. And I'll go in more specific details as we progress through the slides. So let's look at the resource sector. And if you look at the right-hand side, the left-hand side of this chart, you'll see that commodity indexes are overall down still significant. We haven't seen a rebound in pricing. That impacts mining companies in terms of expanding capacity or what they plan to do. So that being said, that's one issue. The other thing that we have problems here is getting regulatory approval off the ground. We have 3-4 pipelines that are going through a approval process that would help the economy moving oil and natural gas to market. Those have been delayed, and there's a new government in power that's taken a relook at the assessment process. That will impact that. We're looking at lithium project. Lithium is critical in terms of clean energy, and it needs to be also taken into consideration. If you look at manufacturing now, manufacturing in general has seen a loss of 33,000 jobs. Now, most of everything driven in automotive manufacturing is to do with automotive. We've had a strong uptick in automotive, but there are considerable issues there. We've seen plant closures down. They've slowed down a bit, but there are still issues as rationalization comes into play, and that really says companies are relooking at where they put their investments. I brought in construction now because what's happening is housing starts fell down a bit. We've had a weird month of weather pattern since March and even mid-April. I would expect that we'll see some pressure on construction, jobs, employments in the next couple months. The good thing is that when we get into the summer peak period, we should see the projects picked up, and same with the infrastructure money that's available through Build Canada as well as the gas tax fund to help support infrastructure, and that should come into play. And there's already been federal money committed to port development, and you should see that come into play. So we are seeing an uptick overall in construction jobs, but what you need to bear in mind that we should likely see a bit more growth in that area as we move forward. Other sectors, when you start looking at this, you start looking at sectors that support an economy. When we get in Provincial Scientific Technical Services Company, they support, that's getting into R&D work, that's getting into engineering, consulting engineering work, and we're seeing growth in those areas that support the economy that's growing, not growing at a quick pace, but it's growing. Food service and retail, they tend to pay a little bit less there, but we're still seeing growth there. Those sectors are driven by consumer spending, and consumer spending has done quite well in the first part of this year, and that's driving it. Government. Now government, again, you have to look over the trends. Budgets are done at school boards, healthcare institutions at the beginning of the year, and then you start seeing activity happen. So it's really weird to see certain jobs fell and then certain jobs peak up. So you have to kind of look at it over the trend. It's all about funding here, and that's why I put some comments about teacher cuts. There could also be into play too as well is retirement coming into play in teaching jobs, because some people may be leaving the employment, so maybe that's what you're seeing in terms of what happened in February. Teachers were leaving taking early retirement. They could have seen that happen. That's why we see the spike up in education jobs as replacements jobs for those people as well. Now, this being said, this is just one take on employment. Now, employment's far from certain right now. There's a lot of issues coming in play. The federal government's instituted a stimulus package to stimulate the economy. They're trying to put some money in to keep the economy growing. But that'll only add into maybe a half a point to GDP, and we may not see the full benefits of what's happening. We have some systemic issues with how we operate in this country in terms of as we move forward. One is we have to continue to move forward with a pro-trade and pro-investment, so they can give companies in Canada more opportunity to invest, to expand their exports. We also need to get governments to get control of their fiscal house in terms of managing their cost restraints and get more efficiencies in terms of how they operate. We also need to get a bunch of things in play on R&D and innovations to help move things forward. How everything's going to play out over the next 9 months, nobody really knows. It does appear that maybe the commodity prices are starting to bottom out. That may lead to development the later part of this year in terms of employment. But we are far from certain times, so it's very finicky right now. There's a lot of things in play from the retail side that we're going to see come in with more e-commerce being put in. There's going to be a lot of rework going into distribution around that area. So these are trends to kind of watch out for as you move forward. Thank you.